Welcome to the Just Jim radio show, here for another gathering of awareness, inspiration, information, a little bit of fun, and taking a look at what's going on around us in the world to see how we can live our lives a little bit differently, a little more fulfillment, a little more freedom, a little less fear, and a little more love, as many songs say. I'm Just Jim, and today I'll be here offering the over 35 years of being a teacher, a healer, a counselor, a speaker, a writer, counselor, doing things for people to help them learn how to live their lives a little bit differently, find their inspiration, their relationship with spirit, with their higher purpose. We're here to just connect today and enjoy knowing life is good. And life is what we bring to it, that meaning that we hold within ourselves. We're at a time in the month where Easter is upon us. And most frequently we'll hear Easter referred to either from an Orthodox point of view, from a place of Christianity. And also, of course, there's the Easter bunny, Easter eggs, Easter candy. Chocolate is an important thing. All the celebration and enjoyment. And there are so many different roots of these different ways of seeing and being. And for each of us to look at how we interpret Easter can be an opportunity to see how we look at the world a little differently. I was raised Catholic, so my reference in my early part of my life was Christianity and Catholicism. And today, a much more open and metaphysical view, above the physical, beyond the specifics and the information that are sometimes provided of how it is or how it has to be. So when we look at a metaphysical or above the physical interpretation of Easter, it's just looking at it from a different angle, looking at it from a place that we can take the pieces and parts that Easter is into our lives, into what we do every day in our families, in our businesses, in our own personal experiences. So we are looking at how words, and you'll hear me refer to a few scriptures and talk about their meaning in this time together, their metaphysical meaning. Words are worldly. They are how we describe what we do in the world. It's the way we see things. And we need to, in conditional reality, in this place we live, in the world of these circumstances and situations around us, we need to have these descriptions to refer to relate to communicate with. We have to be able to help each other understand where we're coming from. And yet, truth, not somebody's truth, not a truth, not the truth, but the truth is of our spirit. Now, when I spirit, I mean your own inner knowing, your own inner being, your own inner expression of what you know is true and real for you. And we are a reflection of that spirit as our truth in the world. We show up in that way. And in being in touch with what that is for us and how we reflect that inspiration of who we are into the world makes a huge difference in how we experience ourselves. When we look at the Christian view of Easter and you look at John where it says, I am the resurrection and the life, the Christ light, the light that is represented by the Christ, by Jesus, a divine light, a sacred light, is that spark of source of creation of all that is, each of us is. No matter how each of us label it or see it, it's who we are and how we are. And that divinity is that sacred space within us where we feel clearly connected to what our truth is and how we can be that in our everyday life. Jesus came into the world not as an angel, but as a man, as a human, certainly with a different view and a different scope of how he saw himself and his relationship to his creator, to his father. And yet he came here to experience what we've experienced also, and to express his purpose, express his light. So in as much as we might look to the Bible or to scriptures or to other philosophy or words to help us begin to try to find out who we are and how we can share it, we have the opportunity every day to express our purpose, to be who we really are. We find ourselves so frequently challenged by worldly perceptions that we wrap around this perfection of our soul, this light that we are, that's constantly reflecting. We're bombarded by the media. I mean, right now, how can you look out beyond your little world that you live in and not see the media just bombarding us with so many different views of different things? And of course, it's so difficult to even try to understand what's true or what's not. And this is where we begin to have to look within and get in touch with what we know is true, not because of what's going on around us, but of who we know we are, whatever that might be. And if we have challenges in the midst of that, we can look a little deeper and know that our soul, our spirit, our heart is always calling out to remind us of what's real and right and true. We are spirit wrapped in the clothing, so to speak, of human form. We're here in this life to be our soul expressed, our spirit expressed, our inner being brought forward in our expression, which creates our experience. And so as we're making our way, we find ourselves sometimes challenged. Gosh, it seems as if in the world there's more challenges every day. I used to not agree with the whole idea that, life is challenging. And it isn't any more challenging than we make it. I get that part. But what I'm saying is that we come up against these things that we have to deal with or try to figure out. And sometimes it doesn't work out. Sometimes we don't do it as well. We're talking about in Easter, we're looking at resurrection, we're looking at redemption, we're looking at salvation. Sin is a mistake. We're here to try to do our best to learn from whatever we experience. And sometimes we're going to not necessarily do it right. We're going to succumb to our fears, our past, our doubts, our insecurities, these mistakes, these sins. Our redemption, our ability to be free, have salvation, is being in our light, in that space of our inner knowing, in our truth, enough to see it for what it is. To have the humility to say, wow, I didn't handle that very well, or that didn't feel good, or I could have done it. This is the evolution of our spirit, of our soul, of our life, beginning to learn more about who we really are. And then as we do that, we're more in alignment or in harmony with life, instead of struggling with it or wrestling with it or being pulled or pushed around by it. We're seeing it, being with it, and rather than it controlling us, rather than it shifting or changing how we see things, we are the life, the light, our own resurrection. Redemption is correction. Redemption is just changing something from one thing to another to have it work for us where it didn't before. Or healing, we speak to so often. Redemption is healing. Finding those places that are empty or lost or don't feel good within us and bringing them what they need. Fear needs love. Frustration needs peace. Emptiness, being lost or doubtful, needs joy. There's so many pieces, simple pieces of the puzzle that we can bring to our lives and be able to be our own redemption, correction, healing. Salvation, another word, salvation being saved as is depicted by the Christian religion, and salvation is freedom. Salvation is freedom. Freedom from the bondage of self, freedom from the difficulties and challenges we might carry within ourselves. And I like so much more. So much more. What do you want to be free from? And the question I would ask you is, how can you be free with it? Because freedom from is like kind of trying to get away from something, or trying to find a way to escape or retreat. And we can't always run head first into things. It's hard to recognize when we don't know how to handle something diving in. And yet, if we can be in our truth, if we can be in that light of our inspiration, if we can be in our inner knowing, we can feel free within us. And as we are free and we walk into our lives, we experience freedom, and freedom with our life. Not to say that, the tempests of life, the storms aren't going to come and go, the waves of emotions aren't going to flood over us, our mind isn't going to be racing sometimes, and we need to slow it down, take a pit stop. But we always can turn to that place within us that we know is our truth, our light, and we can make our way. And it's not like a choice of either our human experience or our spirit or our inner knowing. It's a balance. It's like merging that freedom of our inspiration and that knowing and that peace and that joy with our everyday activities, circumstances, and situations. It's bringing who we truly are into our life as best we can. As best we can. Sometimes that can be interesting, can it not? Resurrection. Boy, that can trigger something in your mind to try to understand what that really means. The connotation, obviously, in Easter of resurrection is related to Jesus rising from the dead. And yet resurrection equals rising above. Metaphysically, rising above what's going on. If we're correcting and healing through redemption, and we're finding freedom with and salvation, then we're setting ourselves free in a peaceful, joyful, loving place to rise above, to resurrect from the challenges that we find ourselves in the middle of, and see it a little differently, bring something a little higher to it. Instead of heavy, lost, empty, fearful, frustrated, we can rise above that, and we can begin to bring these qualities of life to our experience, to our interactions, to our relationships. And we haven't even started about how we can bring that into the world, how we can share that in our lives. It starts at home. Home is where the heart is, where you are, where love is. Really being in touch with that, we get so distracted so often by the things around us. It's difficult to stay focused on that at times, and yet we have the opportunities to do so and the choice all the time. So something to consider. Rising above and freedom from bondage of self. Bondage of self. These are the garments of our life that we've created that we wear. I like to see our self, or our perception